What's up, guys? Welcome back to another one of my videos. This is actually one of my first ever videos on my iPad. Plus, also, I get to finally play a lot of video games now. And I have to
Sync rate. Sync rate. We listen to you, and that's why I'm here to share a hack on how to play with the jelly texture of Paper.io 2, which will help your character reach 100% of the map faster than ever before.
Then should train for cross, and I will across the entire interchange. Thankfully, I made it across and didn't die, so that was a plus. I gotta give it some credit. There is at least a way to navigate this interchange as a pedestrian. A lot of highway interchanges don't have any way to cross unless you're in a car. I honestly don't think there really is an ideal way to cross a highway interchange as a pedestrian, mainly because it wasn't made for them. But does this mean the diverging diamond is our best solution then? Well, it depends on what problem we're trying to solve. Between the signage, the speed of the cars, and the sheer size of this infrastructure, this space was clearly not designed with pedestrians in mind. And at this point you might be thinking, just get in a car and stop complaining. But the thing is, while this specific interchange may have improved safety and traffic flow at this one particular point, that doesn't change the fact that everything around it is still filled with traffic, cars, and parking lots. For example, the very next intersection is at the brim with capacity, despite having 26 lanes. If an intersection this large is still not big enough to handle the capacity, how big are we willing to build? At what point is an intersection too large? The more we grow these spaces for our cars, the less we actually want to be in these places, regardless of if we're in a car or not. Even in a car, being here is not a good experience. You spend so much of your time searching for parking and waiting at traffic lights. The route rolling landscapes dominate highways and parking lots, just like this. And until we change that, traffic will continue to exist. But it's not just the traffic we should be concerned about. It's also the ridiculous cost of building and maintaining this car-dependent landscape, and what we could do with that money instead. For example, this particular interchange in Sarasota costs $74.5 million to develop.
What do you know about Chromebooks, Linus?
Having not looked into
Well,
them
we
since
could
realistically the
or
last
something.
time we covered them, not that much. Not even where they are in the store. But I am armed with some guidelines. The school sent a list of requirements for the specs and functionality. Although they're pretty low, I hope we're not going to see anything modern that doesn't meet those requirements. And then, as a tech-literate parent, I obviously have some of my own thoughts about what I might like to have with respect
100, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
There's a different price in the cabinet than there is on top. That's a reasonable price line item. Hold on, it's the same. But it's still that's a completely different.
On this final level, if you swallow this building right here, you unlock the Titan size. You'll be able to swallow all the city and win the level.
Set of minimum specifications across 5 categories that, in theory, allow you to get a certain quality experience with like better performance and video content, as well as photographing AI. Do I just want the AI features on that great small kids laptop? I don't know, but if you want to learn more information, check out the video. We'll have links below. Back to you, Anderson Davis.
Thanks, Professor. As it turns out, the difference between these has nothing to do with that's the one is this year's model, and the one that's on special is last year's model. There's a couple of little differences. The new one has a slightly brighter screen, more storage, and actually a lower.
Out of stock. The only one is about an hour and a half drive away.
I love my kid, but not that much. Unfortunately, my son is doing too, but if I'm willing to get on the touchscreen and the convertible hinge, I can actually get this one for $349 with the same performance and still with an IPS display.
You never know. And considering getting the convertible, don't watch this video, please.
I think I made my choice. As much as I'd love to have last year's model at a discount, they don't have it in stock, so I'm going to go with this year's X360. Partially because I do like the glass top screen for a device like this. Kids can be really rough with these things, and the matte style touchscreen is not the most durable. And partly just to end up with something different than David, who's going to go sight unseen with the Asus CX34, which was only in stock at another retailer near me. I hope I don't regret this. I guess if I do, will I ever do it?
Hey, how do you think you did, Linus?
I just want to walk away with something so that my back to school shopping is done. I mean, that's kind of how they get you at retail. And then 60% wanting to see if there is any benefit that I'm getting to getting the latest model versus the bang for the buck one that you're picking up. Wait, mine really doesn't have Chromebook Plus. Oh, it's here. What the heck? Anyway, David ended up with the Asus CX34 for $399 Canadian, and I've got the HP X360 for $599. $699. That much? I really don't feel like this is going to end up being the play, but one thing that I guess I get is Google guarantees 10 years of updates on Chromebooks from the release of the new model, meaning that I will get updates a little bit longer. Even then, I gotta say, it kind of seems crazy to spend this much on a Chromebook when, like, refer backwards exists, which
200, 100, 15 to 30, 20, 10.
Let's get this unboxed. Mine's no great mystery since we saw it in the store, but this will be our first hands-on with David's laptop. And what? This does not feel like $300 less than the one I got. I think you're going to be pretty happy with just the feel of it. But you might to put up with because of you people.
What do you mean, you people?
Ooh. And it is a little flexy. But we're being $600-700, knowing that like next year, they're gonna have to sell them for $3.99 to get rid of them. And bake that into the build quality. And while I know some of you will be sitting there at home going, well, who really cares? No one's doing This is a 45-watt charger. Yeah. Be so big.
Ooh, I do like the cable that keeps it away from the wall, though.
It's a trade-off. Definitely a trade-off. Just like I.O. is a trade-off. Man, you get two USB Type-A, my Type-C, and a second Type-C. One Type-A, Type-C, Type-C, and that's it. We both got a headphone jack there, so, which makes sense actually, because that's part of the standard roll-up that you know when you hear headphones, and that's so that they can sit and listen to class with them still in the house. Enough of the outsides though, I think it's time to power these on. This one is a convertible. You do have a 180-degree hinge on this one, which can actually be really nice for just, I used to walk around on campus like this, but it's not convertible. This is what I noticed, and I didn't really consider that putting on her back would be a factor until I picked it up and the screen feels pretty good. But as it turns out, the big difference between these is it's swole. The keyboard presses so much more than mine does, even though my chassis twists so much more than yours does. Let's start with a quick and casual measure. Most of what these devices will be doing is using Chrome browser. It matters a lot how well it performs. Web browsers. Now this mine's going a little faster. It's because you notice that? I might move the laptops around or switch their positions. You don't know which one I'm going to put down on which side. And realistically, you don't even know what laptops do that. So there's really no way to bias. I could have a good device fairly easily. That would probably be too obvious. Okay, here we go. So let's say A. C still.
Yeah, that's like notably better than the other two. Can I see what I'm listening to now?
Uh-huh.
What was what?
This is A.
Okay.
So this is actually the one that was here, the the Asus one.
Gotcha.
It doesn't have speaker grills, which I always feel is a problem.
Wait, so this was A or C? This is C. This one sounds good.
I think good. Strong word personally, but the other one was my. I can handle this one, and I prefer this one, but I would never be able to listen to it.
I feel like there's like a special circle of people who listen really loud on laptops in person.
That's fair. Black levels are also significantly better. Even though I have an IPS display, which theoretically is better or whatever, the fact that my glass is sitting so far forward and catching so much glare means that you get a significantly deeper black, which personally I appreciate. We also haven't looked at performance yet. We're using speedometer 3.1 to do just a dirty browser performance test. Theoretically, you have the better chip, right? So they look okay to me. And they don't really use. Broadly, benchmark faster. No question, you've got the faster chip. 21.2 to 13.7. Woo! Sucks. Would a human care in the browser? Probably not. But if you were to run, say, Android games or even Steam games using Proton, it might matter. Whereas about next year, Steam Proton is going to start using Index, games installed as part of the Steam data no longer be able to display. Now, I believe like will find ways to game on their school PCs. I already mentioned Android titles like we said before, and online streaming is getting better all the time. But for me, this is still a huge downer because under the hood, Chrome OS is based on Linux, and I was quietly reading for the Chrome OS is not to help provide a Linux gaming into the mainstream. I also think this is a big bummer for Google because Chrome OS at the moment is kind of a weird spot. They've tried multiple times to up market, but they remain pretty steady in terms of performance and in terms of public acceptance. For sales, well, we don't actually have the answers for that, but it does seem like we are coming to the path which clearly demands they enjoy it. So what does all that mean for the future of Chromebooks? Well, despite the rumors, I don't think they're going away altogether. I do know Google has a bad habit of dropping product lines, but the market penetration and the long-term support commitments that they continue to make seem to indicate that abandoning them, not likely. But that doesn't mean we're going to be stuck with the flimsy status quo forever. There are other options. On Windows and Mac Lab. Nice. Thanks, David. In the case of my kid's school, apparently only one person has ever tried to use it, though. But it was successful. So if you've ever used Chrome OS Flex, let us know your thoughts down in the comments. And while you're down there, let us know what you think about this. Did we get a good value, okay value, bad value? What would you guys have chosen? Would you have chosen this segment? To our sponsor.
I heard about this roundabout a while ago because I knew they did something unique with it when they built it. And originally I was just going to make a short video about what they did different. But after what I saw when I visited in person, I had so much more to explain than I originally intended. This roundabout is in Miami, Florida, and it was only built a few years ago to fix a notoriously dangerous intersection. But to find what I was looking for, I knew I needed to go in person and experience it for myself. So that's what I did. When I got to the roundabout, sure enough, I found what I was looking for. Traffic lights. Typically, roundabouts don't have traffic lights. That's kind of the point. They're supposed to function without them, with entering traffic just yielding to traffic in the circle and pedestrians in the crosswalks. As a result, things typically stay moving at all times and help greatly with vehicle and pedestrian efficiency. Since pedestrians have the right-of-way, they have to wait on a walk sign like at a traffic light and are always prioritized first in roundabouts. That is, if the traffic actually stops, which is something that traffic engineers have been trying to improve upon. Typically, the best way to get drivers to stop in general is with a traffic light. It's widely understood, legally enforceable, and for the most part, well respected by drivers. But they aren't typically seen at roundabouts, and this is why I was so curious to see how this roundabout would function with them. Typically at roundabouts, the crosswalks are set up like this, crossing the entrance and exit of the roundabout in two different segments. For pedestrians, this is a good feature since they only have to cross one direction of traffic at a time. Additionally, nearly every roundabout in the US is only 1 or 2 lanes, meaning you're typically only crossing at most 2 lanes of traffic at a time. At roundabouts without too many cars or too many pedestrians, this works fine, but a problem can arise when a roundabout begins to have more cars and more pedestrians. How do you ensure that drivers will be stopping for pedestrians? One of the most common solutions are these signs with these flashing lights, which are called rectangular rapid flashing beacons. They're activated when a pedestrian pushes the button, and they immediately start flashing to alert drivers that they need to yield to a pedestrian crossing. Once the pedestrian has cleared the
Okay.
crosswalk, drivers can
No.
continue on.
No
And
more.
for the most part, these work just
Doesn't
fine
have
at
anything to
roundabouts.
say.
However, these are
Not
Maybe she felt
That's a
so.
brother.
meaning they are
Possibly.
requiring drivers to stop.
Hopefully.
So in some places where they want a more definitive and forceful way to get drivers to stop, they've installed
Yeah, hopefully.
beacons, also known as hawk signals at crosswalks and roundabouts. These are legally enforceable like a regular traffic signal, but aren't technically a traffic signal. They're activated by a pedestrian pushing the button, which starts with a flashing yellow warning light, which then changes to a solid yellow light, and finally a double solid red light, which is supposed to be treated like a normal red light,
Good.
at which then the pedestrian receives the walk signal. After a few seconds, the light begins alternating flashing red, which means drivers can go after stopping if the crosswalk is clear, as the pedestrian signal begins counting down. In theory, this should be a great solution, since it provides a protected crossing space for pedestrians using a legally enforceable traffic signal, and it allows drivers to continue on once it's clear. But the problem is these signals are inherently confusing for a ton of drivers. A recent survey of American drivers and pedestrians found that only 23% think the signal is easy to understand and clearly communicates what drivers should do. Also, since they have 2 separate phases of first the flashing yellow warning phase and then the solid yellow phase, it makes pedestrians wait at least 10 seconds before they can begin crossing. A recent study found that 44% of pedestrians don't even bother with activating the signal, and instead just cross when they deem it safe. When most roundabout crossings are only 1 or 2 lanes at a time, it would be naive to expect pedestrians to wait 10 seconds for their walk signal when they can just walk across when it's clear. So when most roundabouts have either just a sign, the rectangular flashing beacons, or the hawk signals, I really wanted to figure out how the roundabout in Miami works with actual traffic signals. This roundabout has a lot of vehicle and pedestrian traffic, so these signals were likely installed as a way to ensure that pedestrians have a safe way to get through this intersection in a way that drivers can clearly understand. And in theory, it does exactly that. Using it as a pedestrian, it turned yellow immediately after I pressed the button, and drivers stopped for the red light, letting me cross the road as designed. At first, I thought this is a good way to allow for safe pedestrian crossings at roundabouts, but this was early in the day and there wasn't much traffic or pedestrians out. At times, it seemed a bit overkill for pedestrians to press the button and activate a whole light cycle just to cross 1 lane of traffic. And it turns out there were a lot of people who didn't even bother with pressing the button at all. As both vehicle and pedestrian traffic increased later in the day, I began to notice more flaws of this setup. These signals have a cooldown period built into them, so if a pedestrian just activated the signal and you missed it, pushing the button again won't make it immediately activate the signal again. This leaves pedestrians feeling impatient and almost always results in them crossing before the cooldown period was over because they see a gap in traffic. And for pedestrians who press the button and have to wait for no reason, it reinforces the idea that it's not even worth it to use it. For several pedestrians at this roundabout, they didn't even bother with using the crosswalks at all. While it's easy to place blame on the pedestrians for not following the rules, it also indicates this design is somehow failing to accommodate this pedestrian in an efficient way, that they have more incentive to cross in a dangerous and illegal way than to use the provided option. For example, this approach doesn't have a crosswalk at the roundabout. Instead, it's moved further down the street. And ironically, despite being the only crossing that has to cross 4 lanes of traffic, this crosswalk doesn't have a traffic signal and instead just uses the rectangular flashing beacons. So for someone wanting to go from here to here, they have to take this path, which explains why someone might take this route, exactly as this guy did. At this point, I had experienced this roundabout as a pedestrian, but what's it like to drive through it? You turns out, this is where things get even weirder. But first, I needed to make a quick stop to fill up on gas. And with the free Upside app, the sponsor of this video, I was able to get cash back for doing so. First, I found a gas station nearby with an available offer, and this one in particular was 14 cents of cash back per gallon, so I decided to go there. However, Upside is giving StreetCraft viewers an extra 25 cents for every gallon on your first tank of gas, so you could be earning even more. I claimed the offer, followed the instructions in the app, and filled up as usual, except soon after I got cash back, all from downloading this free app, which is pretty crazy since this is something I would be doing anyway. It's not a confusing reward or point system either, it's actual cash back that you can use to get gift cards or just transfer directly into your bank account. Plus, they have over 100,000 gas stations, grocery stores, and restaurants with available offers, so it's easy to find a place where you can start earning. Upside users are making as much as $280 a year. To find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside, and use code StreetCraft to get an extra 25 cents back for every gallon on your first tank of gas. Or scan the QR code here to claim this offer. And remember, it's a free app, so all you have to do is download Upside and begin earning today. Now with a full tank of gas, I went back to the roundabout, and as I drove up to it, I noticed something weird about the traffic lights. You couldn't really see them. At some of the approaches, you couldn't see them at all, and at some, you could only see them at certain angles before appearing dark again. And the reason why comes back to human psychology. In theory, there's nothing wrong with having traffic lights for the crosswalks. The traffic lights allow for controlled pedestrian crossings, and the roundabout functions as usual with a yield sign. But since they're so close, it's not necessarily clear these lights are only for the crosswalks, not for entry into the roundabout. When drivers approach the roundabout and see the green light, they may assume it's good to go and not yield to traffic in the roundabout, which is still necessary regardless of what color the signal is. This isn't an issue for traffic exiting the roundabout. Those signals are fully visible because there's no yield sign immediately after to get confused with. But this adds another level of driver confusion. When I drove through it, I wasn't sure if my light wasn't functioning correctly and this pedestrian had a walk sign, or if they didn't bother to press the button and my light was supposed to be green. Additionally, from my brief experience at this roundabout, drivers had a really difficult time understanding the concept of yield, and I'm not totally sure why. I don't think it can be fully attributed to the traffic lights either, especially since this even happened from the approach without any traffic lights. For reference, Miami has tons of other roundabouts nearby, so drivers should be familiar with the concept. Granted, most are these small neighborhood roundabouts, but the concept still remains the same on a larger scale. Not only did 3 different drivers fail to yield to me in the few times I drove through this roundabout, but there were also drivers who would just stop in the middle of the roundabout and continuously let traffic in that was supposed to be yielding to them. Of course, this comes back to human psychology, as most drivers try to avoid actively crashing into people, and in this case, continuing on when nobody is stopping like they're supposed to would probably be a little intimidating. But when this happens, it reinforces the incorrect rules to all of these drivers and creates confusion and distrust in roundabouts. The same thing is happening over here, but this may be partially due to the design of this lane, which is supposed to yield, but it doesn't really fully enter the roundabout either. And the wide curve allows drivers to continue traveling at high speeds. This makes for an awkward conflict point that gets even more confusing when traffic backs up into the roundabout, which I learned is another big issue there. There's a traffic light down here that backs up traffic into the roundabout during times of heavy traffic, which is never ideal in a roundabout. One of the reasons behind this is the way this intersection is set up. There are no turning lanes or left turn arrows, so while both of these lanes go straight, someone wanting to turn left here has to wait sometimes a whole phase before being able to complete their left turn, causing all of the traffic behind them in that lane to wait. Overall, it's clear this roundabout has some issues, but it turns out this is still a major improvement from how this intersection existed before. Previously, all traffic on the main road here was free-flowing, and all of these other minor roads had to turn across multiple lanes of traffic. Lane markings were ignored, and some turning movements were restricted. This intersection was full of conflict points, and the roundabout did help with that. The geometry of a roundabout also naturally allows access to and from all of the roads leading into it, which increases accessibility.
Road stuff.
Any of these roads without
Road
having
designs.
illegal turns or cross several lanes of traffic. But there's more to the story because there was another idea for fixing this intersection before the current roundabout was built.
I'm Aaron DeMeo. My company is Future Vision Studios. We do architectural design, urban planning, and land use, primarily in South Florida and the city of Miami. We determined that this could be a good spot for a roundabout based on the complexity of the different streets that converge into this location. And as a user of this intersection on my bike, walking and in a vehicle, it was pretty obvious when you moved through it how dangerous it was from people speeding through it because of the large turning radiuses. The large amount of pavement allowed people to make illegal maneuvers, illegal left turns, and anyone moving through that intersection, especially more than once, could pretty quickly see how it needed to kind of be refined. And that's how we determined that this one should be prioritized from just the amount of complexity. And then we stepped and analyzed each of the roads going into the intersection as well to see how maybe those might need to be adjusted and look to create a comprehensive solution to solve the movement patterns of bikes, cars, and people moving into and out of this intersection. We reviewed various layouts for this intersection, and based on the amount of open right-of-way, this public space that we thought we could work within, and we landed on this shape that looks like a peanut that allowed for all 5 roads to go in and out of the intersection in a safe, manageable way, as well as accounting for a bike lane that would encircle the entire peanut roundabout and also lead out of it, because this is a really critical junction for pedestrians and bicyclists as well, because of the I-95 expressway, which blocks a lot of movement into and out of Brickell, which is a very dense neighborhood.
At the same time, the Florida Department of Transportation was also coming up with plans for a roundabout at this location, granted with a slightly different design that included more lanes and didn't incorporate this fifth road.
We took some quick effort and wrapped up the presentation and shared it with the decision makers, the elected officials, and the design team for the project, in hopes that maybe they would see that what we proposed did actually work well and possibly even better than what had been proposed, because it included all 5 roads going in and out of the intersection. And we presented it to them, and we showed up to the public meeting and presented it. There was a lot of people who came and spoke about wanting to see the safety, but unfortunately, because we were pretty late in the process, the construction had been already planned, the resources had been allocated. So at that point, we kind of pivoted and we changed to looking for ways that we could try to improve on what was being proposed. And that included our requests to kind of adjust some of the sidewalk locations to make sure it was a more straight path, make sure that paint was added in certain locations, note when bike lanes were ending or beginning again, to make sure that we reduce as many hazards as possible for safety of all the road users. Many of the suggestions that we made on those changes to the plan were implemented, which I'm really grateful that they were, because I think it did make it safer in the end.
Obviously, the current roundabout is already built, and while it is an improvement from what it was before, it also serves as a great case study for 3 different reasons, and it can help guide future projects on what works and what doesn't. First, it highlights the importance of considering the whole area, not just the intersection itself. With this other intersection nearby having flaws of its own, it directly impacts how the roundabout functions by causing backups within the roundabout. If this intersection was modified alongside the roundabout, it could have worked better together as a system rather than 2 individual intersections. Next is the lane configurations. 1-lane roundabouts always have less conflict points than multi-lane roundabouts, and are more straightforward for everyone. But it can also only handle certain levels of traffic before leading to delay. However, it's also crucial to think about who is using the roundabout. For a roundabout placed in a dense urban setting with lots of pedestrian use, it may be worth a few extra seconds of driver delay during rush hour for a design that is safer and works better for pedestrians at all hours of the day. While reducing delay is often a huge priority of projects, it must be balanced with safety. Along with this project also gives us insight on considering the way multi-lane roundabouts are parked. This lane in particular is a good example. While this lane must yield to traffic already in the roundabout who may decide to enter this lane, many drivers proceed as if traffic inside the roundabout will be entering this lane. Of course, these drivers have no idea which lane the other drivers need, and this introduces an additional variable and potential conflict into this design. This lane is also in a way that doesn't require drivers to slow down and allows for higher speeds while entering the roundabout. Finally, it gives us insight as to how traffic lights work for pedestrian crossings in roundabouts. And ultimately, I think the answer is less about the lights themselves and more about the roundabout. The reason most roundabouts don't have traffic signals is that they simply don't need them. Typically, the geometry of the road results in slow vehicle speeds, and combined with short crossing distances, allows for drivers to easily yield to pedestrians when they're crossing and continue on their way once they're done. Adding in things like traffic lights and even hawk signals further complicate things, leading to people getting impatient, frustrated, and confused. Sometimes the best solution is just slowing down and paying attention, and there are tons of ways we can change our roads to do just that, which I go into depth with in this next video here. Thanks again to Upside for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check out the link in the description.
finding new adventures. And standout stuff.
Looking for last-minute gifts? Shop the best gifts under $50 this holiday on
Why would Origin PC sponsor a video where their top-of-the-line gaming machine performs like this? Well, maybe because it doesn't. Hey, there we go. That's better. The Neuron should be getting hundreds of frames per second in CS2. And ours would have if we hadn't given it to our techie friend to fix and gotten it back in worse than before. Of course, it arrived from Origin in perfect working order, but, well, we'll get to that. It's a really common situation, and for many people, the next move is to prepare their wallet and head to the tech shop. If they have an Origin PC, they could just use their 24/7 lifetime support, but if they don't have an Origin PC, well, the big question is, where do you go? The service department at a big box store would surely have the processes and tools to diagnose and repair your PC, but on the other hand, maybe the veteran tech at the mom and pop shop down the road is best equipped to evict your system's gremlins. Yeah, we couldn't decide which route to go either, so we dropped off two identical and identically broken systems, courtesy Origin, to compare big box versus small business. But before we get into the results, we need to know the problem. Let's take a look at the messes that we're going to be handing over.
I'm that friend everyone asks for tech support, but I don't mind helping to set up such a beautiful machine. It looks so fast. Ooh, and it is! But it's a little loud. Okay, I've watched a lot of videos about system tuning, and I know what this means. Overheating.
That is where everything went from oops to OMG. That cable that was loosened during unpacking handled communication between the PC and our cooler's IQ Link system hub. So, that knocked out RPM monitoring for our fans, meaning it's full throttle and clock all the time. Now, a quick reality check before we go further. The Link AIO and fans all have temperature probes in them, so this behavior doesn't normally happen. But, in general, a hub running full speed due to a loss of signal is a very common scenario, and one that should be easy for a technician to rectify. Too bad our friend isn't a technician. First, they tried rolling back the NVIDIA driver to the earliest one available. Unfortunately, they did so without removing the existing driver, so not only did this not solve the problem, it created a new one. Device Manager is now reporting error code 43. Oops. Too bad my friend didn't notice. Then, they ran CD Cleaner and started uninstalling stuff in hopes that it would help, which it did not. Friendo was running short on ideas by this point, so they dug around in the BIOS and disabled everything they could find that would cause extra heat in hopes that the fans would slow down. And for good measure, they also locked the cork box as low as they could go. It's too bad the LTT Hat Pro doesn't make you smarter, just more water resistant. LTTstore.com. Now, as a pretty average buyer of a pre-built system, I don't know any of what my friend did, and even if I did, I wouldn't understand what it meant. All I would know is my games are unplayable, they crash, and my system is as loud as a vacuum cleaner. I would have no way of knowing, is it a hardware or a software problem, or even how to tell the difference. And I would probably be scared of damaging it any further. Now, I could contact the manufacturer, and for a brand new PC, that's probably a pretty good bet. Origin PC has scored well for customer service in our Secret Shopper series. Origin PC, what can I say? Wow. A+. We nailed it. Under 10 minutes, and
Bacon face mask.
24/7. A+. And they have free lifetime support. But not everybody has a brand new PC, or an Origin PC for that matter. Now, of course, what we actually are dealing with here is a software and BIOS mess and one loose cable. The quickest way of fixing it then would be to plug the cable in, clear the CMOS, and reinstall Windows. But it can also be fixed without doing either of those things if you know exactly what we did. The techs, of course, don't, so let's listen in and see what kinds of conclusions they drew, starting with the Langley Best Buy.
Hey, so I bought this off of a friend a couple days ago, and it's been giving me problems when I've been trying to play games on it. They're just running super slow, and the thing sounds like it's gonna see. No,
Did we send Chewy?
we bought it from Origin, I believe. Yeah, I thought the budget would be best. No. Is it custom made, right? I'm not sure. He bought it and never even took it out of the box. No. Put a sticky note here with my Steam in case you need to get in there. Like when you play games, they're lagging or they're super slow. Yeah. One of the games I have, Helldivers 2, when I open it, it just crashes and it says something about the CPU being bad or something. I'm not sure.
Chewy did a really good job of both playing the ignorant customer who has no idea what he's talking about, while also
I need to go
putting out a
take a
nice little
shower.
trail of breadcrumbs for them to follow in order to diagnose this issue. He even gave them access to a Steam account that has a specific game installed that requires AVX support, so they would get the error message that would help them reconfigure the BIOS.
They're taking it.
Excuse me? I mean, I guess, right? Like, I can't force you to work on something. You can just be like, no, look, this job is not right for us. Maybe take it somewhere else. But we are not taking it. A little direct.
We're not working on custom build.
Okay.
He says, what's up with that? We have those parts on the brand.
Okay.
And even manufacturer warranty.
Okay.
Fortunately, I'm really sorry for that, but we can really know.
Okay, he tried to soften it a little bit.
There's something called memory. Memory, the shop nearby, they do great custom builds and stuff like that.
On the one hand, I kind of get his rationale. Look, we don't necessarily have access to replacement parts for this thing. On the other hand, if you're going to recommend that I go to another shop, can you at least tell me the actual name of the shop? Ah, the irony. Not being able to remember the name of Memory something. Express, that's it. So we just got told to leave, essentially, at the first Best Buy. That can't be policy. Emily, that's not policy, is it?
No, we called them afterwards, and they told us that yes, they actually absolutely do work on like pre-built computers and also custom-built computers that they don't sell in their stores.
You know what I bet it's about? They probably saw how high-end it was, looked at the issues that we were having with it, and went, this thing's haunted, and just didn't want to deal with it. Because you make a mistake on a, $600 Office box, okay, what? That's a $50 mistake or a $100 mistake. You make a mistake on a, $5,000, $6,000 Canadian dollar gaming rig. Let's move on. Drop off this time at the Best Buy on King George Highway.
Hey, this is the super. So what do you want to do now?
Get it fixed. Whatever it needs.
Chewy really does play the ignorant customer extremely well. He has strong trust fund kid vibes. I've got this crazy machine. I'll just fix it. Yeah, whatever. Chewy's our community coordinator, by the way. So if you ever see a reply on Reddit that's not from me, it's probably from me.
Do you use TV or it's a monitor? Do you have a monitor?
It's an interesting question. Do you hook it up to a TV or a monitor? Unless they were trying to help figure out if we were plugged into the onboard GPU or the dedicated graphics card.
It's a custom build monitor. I bought it off a friend. I'm not sure. What is a custom build PC they want? Look at it.
Wait, this is an interesting distinction, and I can kind of see where they're coming from, but even at this second Best Buy location, they're drawing a line between a system that was built in parts by an experienced engineer like an Origin PC, and a system that could be built of the exact same parts, but by the individual user.
Okay.
And in that case, it's not about the value of the parts and the risk of breaking them or the difficulty finding them.
There are a lot of bad intersections around the US, but we're going to look at what makes these four so bad and how they could be changed to be either safer, more efficient, or both. We'll start at the shopping center in Newport, Kentucky, specifically this part of the road. which is technically several intersections, but we'll look at the whole thing. The big problem here is that there are a lot of driveways and access points for businesses, and as a result, it makes it really chaotic, especially this intersection. This is a Chick-fil-A, which if you're familiar with, are notorious for drawing in tons of traffic and long drive-thrus. And this Chick-fil-A is arguably the main driver in some of the issues going on here. People going to this Chick-fil-A have two options, either a right turn from this road or right or left from this road here. And people leaving this Chick-fil-A can either turn right out of here or both right and left out of here. And this left turn causes a lot of issues, because in addition to this turn, there are 7 other turning opportunities in this area, and this one just happens to be in the middle, crossing through it all. On top of that, there's this main intersection here with a traffic signal, meaning that traffic just waiting at this light is backed up into all of this. Add in the fact that people try to be nice and let others through, ends up meaning that cars like this get stuck in the middle because they couldn't see the other side, and you end up in a situation full of confused drivers making dangerous maneuvers. You might be wondering, why would anyone even try to turn left out of Chick-fil-A? Well, because it's probably really inconvenient for them if they don't. For anyone needing to go this way, this is the only option that really makes any sense. If they use the other exit, they can only turn right here, which makes them continue down this road, which goes the total opposite way. And if they just turn right at this exit instead, they aren't allowed to U-turn at this light either, meaning they have to continue down this road. Again, totally different direction. So for someone trying to get from Chick-fil-A to Target, which is probably pretty common, without doing a left turn out of here, they'd either have to turn around in a parking lot or hop on the freeway and do a massive loop around. This main intersection is also a hotspot for crashes. The entire thing is on a curve, and is an intersection where this road transitions from being a divided setup to access the highway ramps into a street with businesses, meaning speeds coming into this intersection can be significantly higher than the speed limit of 35 miles per hour. The 3 lanes coming into it are highway width lanes, signaling to drivers it's a high-speed road. Plus, this intersection is at the bottom of a hill, adding to the speed even more. And back in the other direction, this intersection is a multi-lane 4-way stop that feeds directly into a parking lot. As you can imagine, this leads with more instead of confusion. A lot of drivers even get confused with a simple 1-lane 4-way stop. This leaves us with a small stretch of road that could use a lot of fixing. And we'll start with fixing this intersection, because it'll help us fix the rest actually. This is a perfect candidate to turn into a simple 1-lane roundabout. The length that goes into the parking lot could also be extended a little further to make things more orderly too. It would also add crosswalks where there are none right now, and there could be a sidewalk that runs along this road, which is also not there right now. Moving further down, we're going to reconfigure this intersection too. We'll change it to eliminate left turns out of here, which gets rid of another potential conflict, and instead traffic needing to go that way can easily turn around at the roundabout. Now let's look at the Chick-fil-A intersection we started with. The solution to this would actually be pretty simple. Don't allow left turns in or out of Chick-fil-A. We do this with a median that would only allow for left turns into the Target parking lot. But that still leaves us with the accessibility problem, which we can solve with yet another roundabout at this main intersection. This roundabout would allow people to U-turn if needed, plus it would keep traffic moving and act as a good gateway to this area to be a clear transition from the larger divided road into the street with businesses, slowing everyone down in the process and hopefully improving safety. The approach coming into the roundabout would be reduced to 2 lanes instead of 4, and would feature this gentle curve, which is common before roundabouts to slow traffic down before they enter the roundabout. You might be wondering why this roundabout isn't really, well, round. It's because some directions have more lanes than others. For example, this left turn lane is currently a very popular movement through this intersection, so it has 2 lanes through the roundabout. Typically, the fewer lanes in a roundabout, the safer it is, but depending on traffic count, this roundabout could need more lanes. For example, if there's a lot of traffic making this movement, it would delay traffic here trying to go straight, and an additional lane may help ease that delay. On the other hand, if there are plenty of gaps in traffic, it would allow this 1 lane to flow freely and likely function with little delay. Many roundabouts can actually function better than traditional intersections without needing as many lanes. While a traditional intersection might need 3 lanes to hold all the stop traffic at a light, 1 lane may work just fine in a roundabout due to the near constant flow of traffic. This entire redesign would also add sidewalks on both sides of the road compared to just one as it is right now, and would also include paved block crosswalks. The current setup isn't very pedestrian friendly at all, and while big shopping centers like these are never really great places for pedestrians anyway, this new design would at least be an improvement from what the current setup is. Overall, this design would eliminate any of the confusing and dangerous left turns going on, improve pedestrian connectivity, and add roundabouts that would improve traffic flow and fuel efficiency, allowing drivers to save money on gas. But until then, there's a different way to earn money on gas. No roundabouts required, with the free Upside app, which is the sponsor of this video. To show you how it works, I actually needed to get gas, so I used the Upside app to find a gas station. With Upside, you can see all of these different offers that allow you to earn cash back for free just by filling up your gas tank at those gas stations. Once you find a gas station that works for you, claim the offer, follow the instructions in the app, fill up as usual, and if you're like me, start doing the math in your head as you watch the pump to see how much you're earning. It's actually pretty crazy how fast it adds up, especially given this is a free app that lets you earn on something you'd be doing anyway. And it's actual cash back too, not a confusing reward or point system. You can use it to get gift cards or transfer directly into your bank account. There are over 100,000 stations, grocery stores, and restaurants available on the app, so it's not hard to find a place you can start earning near you. Top Upside earners are making as much as $300 a month. To find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside, and use the code STREETCRAFT to get an extra 25 cents back for every gallon on your first tank of gas, or scan the QR code here to claim this offer. And remember, it's a free app, so all you have to do is download Upside and begin earning today. The next intersection is actually pretty simple, but due to being on a high-speed highway, it's incredibly dangerous. And when crashes have occurred here, the high speeds of the vehicles have made them deadly. The main problem here is, once again, left-turning traffic, both here and here. These left turns both happen in this space, and this small area has high-speed traffic zooming by on both sides. Not to mention that the turning cars also have to watch out for the cars turning in the other direction. However, this kind of intersection is found in a lot of rural America, and is the result of trying to build a road that can function as a freeway, but without having to spend money on building an entire grade-separated interchange with entrance and exit ramps. An interchange is a much better solution because it physically divides any intersecting traffic and gives drivers dedicated space to speed up to merge and slow down to exit, all while through traffic can continue driving without having to worry about cars turning out in front of them. An interchange would be ideal here, but there is another solution that can help improve what's currently going on here while still keeping costs low and allowing it to function as a high-speed highway that doesn't interrupt the flow of through traffic. We'll start with changing the middle part here to only allow for left turns from this direction. So while this traffic is still unfortunately turning in front of high-speed oncoming traffic, they don't have to worry about anyone else other than the oncoming traffic. However, that means that all traffic coming from this road has to turn right. But obviously not everyone wants to turn right, so we'll build a U-turn lane a little further down the road so people can go in the other direction. Since this turn is pretty tight, it would likely need some extra pavement here to accommodate the larger turning radius of larger vehicles. And that's about it actually. It might seem inconvenient to have to turn around, but it allows drivers to focus on the direction of traffic first, make sure it's clear, then proceed into the U-turn lane, focus on that direction of traffic, and proceed on their way when clear. It separates all turning movements into different physical locations, rather than all in one small spot like it is right now. And the data has shown this actually improves safety. This setup is a variation of a restricted crossing U-turn, and they've been shown to have a 63% reduction in fatal and injury crashes when compared to a traditional unsignalized intersection like the current setup.
What? I'm telling you to get there. I'm done with it.
If someone demands payment with a gift card, it's a scam. Don't share gift card codes or...
I'm doing really great these days, which is weird.
It was found that for the cost of one regular interchange, 10 to 20 of these intersections can be built, and they can usually be built in the existing right-of-way and require a much shorter construction timeline. This setup can also be more efficient, since drivers, particularly truck drivers, don't have to wait for long enough gaps in traffic from both directions to safely turn left. So while it may not be the perfect solution, for places with limited budgets, it can still make a real impact. This roundabout, if we want to call it that, has a live stream that occasionally captures incidents like this one, where a driver decided to turn left into the roundabout, which in the US is not the way you're supposed to go. However, I don't totally blame the driver here, because after looking at the intersection, it's clear this is not your average roundabout. Most roundabouts don't have lanes that are 47 feet wide, and most roundabouts don't have crosswalks that cut right through the middle, but this one does. Most roundabouts also have curbs and signs in the middle that direct traffic in the correct direction, but this one also has neither. This roundabout dates back to at least 1938 and was originally built as a way to control traffic for these 5 roads feeding into it. However, roundabout design has come a long way since then, and we don't build roundabouts like this anymore. There's nothing necessarily wrong with having a roundabout here. In fact, it seems to handle the traffic flow pretty well. However, it could be modernized to today's standards. One of the first things would be adding splitter islands to channel entering and exiting traffic into the correct direction. Making the center island larger too would reduce the width of the travel lane in this roundabout. making it clear this is just a one-lane roundabout. Crosswalks could also be placed in the correct spot, which is across the entrances and exits of the roundabout like this. This would still keep the same functionality, but bring this up to today's design standards, and likely reduce wrong-way driving and clarify where to yield. However, the city doesn't seem too interested in changing it anytime soon, as a few months ago they just repaved the entire thing and kept it exactly the same as it's existed for years. With a lot of the roads in the US, it's clear that the focus is usually on moving vehicles, making pedestrians and cyclists an afterthought. But sometimes it seems like the engineers are deliberately trying to get people killed. This bike lane is located on a large divided through road that has 2 cloverleaf ramps to enter and exit the highway. The problem is, this bike lane runs directly through the area where cars have to weave between entering and exiting traffic. If you've ever driven through a cloverleaf interchange, you know the feeling of trying to find a gap to either enter or exit this lane. And the last thing on your mind is probably checking to make sure there aren't cyclists in the bike lane. Yet this bike lane runs right down the middle of these 2 lanes. This brings up an interesting set of ethical questions, because clearly this design is incredibly dangerous. It doesn't take being a traffic engineer to see what could go wrong here. However, an actual traffic engineer designed this bike lane at some point, it went through an approval process, and crews were sent out to paint the road green. But should it have? There's no license requirement to ride a bike, and people of all ages and abilities use bikes, and this is the type of infrastructure provided for those people. How would you feel if a child on their bike decided to use this bike lane? Your answer should be terrified, and yet this exists. Is it better to build terrible infrastructure and present it as a viable transportation option than to not provide that option at all, knowing the threat it poses? If there were shark-infested waters, would it be better to set up a swimming area than to not have a swimming area at all? Where did common sense get lost in the governmental process of building this road? And what does that say about the system in which our roads are designed that something like this is considered acceptable enough to be built? However, this interchange is in the process of being modified. Instead of these 2 loop ramps to enter and exit the highway, they're building 2 separate bridges as part of a $145 million construction project. This bridge will serve as the entrance ramp, and this bridge will be the exit ramp. Along with the new bridges, the interchange will be reconfigured to a traditional interchange without the loop ramps. The plans provided by the Florida Department of Transportation upon request only show a low-resolution configuration for vehicle lanes, so it's still not known what the plan for accommodating pedestrians and cyclists will be here. But if it's anything like the 2 nearby interchanges they recently completed, it'll probably look something like those.
Mimi 被掉下去了！我靠！
Yeah, you better. What?
Can you read this word? Mira, fíjate, es un boludo. Mira por dónde se quiere meter. Por todavía se pone. Sí, boludo. No, 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 no. Mira, no.
There's gotta be some sort of. Oh, sorry about that.
This little guy keeps biting my phone like this. You know what that means?
Microwave.
Hello, my friend. What's your name? What's it?
Yeah, I considered. Meow, meow, meow.
What? Behind you!
my god. No limón tampoco. Excuse me. Excuse me.
It's the way Weezer looks like she's standing up perfectly straight right now.
What? Natalie, this is insane. What the hell?
The Bluetooth device is connected successfully.
I feel like a lot of people think cats just have a mind of their own and
How did you sleep? Yeah, pretty good. Okay, good.
So, I got a new hairstylist. He's out work.
I believe this will make for a notable paper. Don't bet on it.
Saw that.
Long before time had a name. The first Spinjitzu master.
When I was jorking it, I suddenly remember I lost my arm in a factory accident. That's when I asked myself the scary question. Who was jorking on my penis?
Stop. This is weird.
Escucha las palabras de las brujas, los secretos escondidos en la noche, los antiguos dioses invocamos ahora.
Buenas tardes, señor. Mi nombre es...
You guys want to see literally the coolest cat ever? This dude gives 0 f***s, bro.
my god, what are you doing? Oh my.
Video, mami, gente, para perder el tiempo, empecemos.
No, not the guy, the cat.
We can all meow together, Coral.
Come on, Flynn. Okay, baby. Take a few steps.
There was so much footage of October. Here's a deer that grows to over 211 inches, and we had like 30 minutes of footage of it.
Look at me. You're so sweet.
These are kitties. Let me see. Ah, look at these teeth. Oh, nice.
Can't go to sleep because she's always trying to freaking attack me. I really want to cry because I can't.
Stop acting like you know the way ahead, like you know the rules. There are no rules, man. We're lost.
Oh.
Well, I guess that's going to be the end of this YouTube video, and bye.